Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome, podcast listeners. Welcome back for another episode of the Networking RX podcast. I am Frank Agin, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Just a reminder, we're looking to add quality people to our stable of franchisees. This is a unique franchise opportunity in that it's geared for aspiring entrepreneurs or professionals to add on to what they already do. All our franchisees do something else. They're successful in their own right, doing the things that they do. They're accountants, attorneys, financial advisors, realtors, coaches, consultants of various kinds. In addition to that, a couple hours in the morning, just a few days a week, they work the AmSpirit Business Connections program. And the rest of the time, they're doing what they do. But with respect to the AmSpirit Business Connections program, they're helping aspiring entrepreneurs, sales reps, and professionals in their area become more successful through a referral-based program. If this is something you're interested in, shoot me an email. We'll provide an email in the show notes, and there's also one provided at the end of this program. Today what I want to talk about is referral pitfalls, more or less avoiding referral pitfalls. And I really see in working with the people in AmSpirit Business Connections and entrepreneurs and sales reps and professionals in general, that there are really 5 basic pitfalls that keep them from getting referrals. The first pitfall number 1, is that at times networkers become too focused on getting the end business, even though people that they know, people in their networks, might not recognize the opportunities they're looking for. I joke about this. I call this a good referral for me is somebody holding a check with my name on it. And different examples of this, I think every profession kind of has a different example of this, but some of the easy ones to understand is like a realtor might say, a good referral for me is somebody you know who wants to sell their house. Well, I might not know when somebody wants to sell their house. I kid about it, but a lot of times I'll know lots of things about my neighbors and not know that they're looking to sell a house. I'll joke and I'll say I'm more likely to know that they're trying to conceive a child than to know that they're going to sell their house. And I've seen it from time to time and heard stories where I've had conversations with a neighbor or I've had somebody have a conversation with a neighbor and they tend to know their neighbors pretty well, and then the next day there's a sign in the yard. For whatever reason, people just aren't very forthcoming with that sort of thing. So when a realtor comes to me and says, hey, a good referral for me is if you know somebody trying to sell a house, I might not know that. Now, I might know somebody's trying to buy a house, or saying, and again, I think every profession kind of has this, where after the fact, you can see that they're a great client, but leading up to it, you might not know. So if somebody comes to me and says, well, a good referral for me, or a financial advisor comes up to me and says, a good referral for somebody is somebody who's looking to, work with a financial advisor, or somebody who's got investable assets, who is planning for retirement. I might not know. Those things might not come up. It might not be readily apparent. And so just to ask for the end business, if that's all you end up doing, it's really kind of a pitfall, because people end up shrugging their shoulders and saying, I don't know. I don't know when somebody's selling their house. I don't know when somebody needs an attorney. If that's all I'm asked to look for, I'm not going to necessarily spot it. So that's the first pitfall, is being too focused on just getting the end business, especially when that end business might not be easily recognizable. The second pitfall I see networkers coming up against with respect to getting referrals is that at times they'll overlook the small potato opportunities, small potatoes, air quotes. They'll overlook the small potato opportunities, and those small potato opportunities can open the doors to bigger ones. And how I characterize this is people saying in their mind, they're not necessarily saying it out loud, I'm willing to do the little things, But I'll talk about just the big ones so I don't leave money on the table. I'm a financial advisor. I'm just going to talk about the big clients I work with or the big clients that I want. I'm willing to work on the smaller ones, but if I talk about the smaller ones and I get smaller ones, I'm not going to get the bigger ones. And what we need to remember is that little things always lead to big things. And so don't not talk about the little things. Recently working with a realtor. Realtor carries herself really well, very sharp, very professional, very well networked. And in talking with her, I got the sense that she deals with $1 million homes, $500,000 homes. That was just kind of, and she doesn't mean to do it, but she is so professional and so sharp that she kind of gives off this persona that she is dealing with these really high-end homes. Now, if you're living in New York City, I get it, $1 million home is nothing. But if you're in the Midwest, $1 million home, $500,000 home can be a mansion, so to speak. But so she was kind of unknowingly positioning herself as this really high-end realtor. And then when we got to talking, she kind of let out that, you know what, I'm willing to talk to people who are for sale by owners, people who are just trying to sell a house on their own. And some of those things, for people who don't know, some of those turn into clients, some of them don't. She was willing to talk to people who were looking for smaller condos, looking to talk to people who were trying to get into small starter homes. But that wasn't coming through in the messaging that she was giving. And what she was trying to do, right or wrong, is she was trying to really position herself for the larger things. And what I've coached her to do is let people know about the smaller things. Let them know about those smaller things, because those smaller things will lead to bigger things. You can let people know, listen, I can help people with the $1 million home, but I can also help your client that's just getting started. They just need a $50,000 condo, townhome, or whatever. I can get them started and kind of let them know of the full gamut. But when you're just talking about the big stuff, you're overlooking the little stuff, and a lot of times that little stuff can turn into bigger things. So that's the second pitfall. The third pitfall I see is that times people who network for referrals forget that the path to great opportunity is seldom a direct one. And so they might look at somebody and say, wow, that person's a decent professional, but I really don't want to waste time with them because they're not really a prospect for me. I get it. I don't like to waste time either. But I also have had enough experience in doing this that I recognize that the opportunities are seldom staring you right in the face. The real opportunities sometimes are 2, 3, 4, 5 levels deep. The example I like to use is, for those who don't know, I do a flash briefing or a small micro podcast called Networking RX Minute, which is you can find it the same place you found this, but it's just a minute little podcast 7 days a week. Just a little inspiration, a little bit of insight, a little bit of history, whatever it might be, just 1 minute. And where that idea came from, it came from me talking to somebody in Cleveland who referred me to somebody in Kalamazoo, Michigan, who referred me to somebody down in Texas, who referred me to somebody over in Arizona, referred me back to Texas. In other words, the path to that was not direct. And that happens so often is that a lot of times the people we end up doing business with are people that are connected to the people that we're meeting, who know other people who know other people. So the pitfall I see people doing is they will forego opportunities because it's not readily apparent that that person can be a client. They can't see the forest for the trees, if you will. They can't see the opportunity because the person in front of them, who is the opportunity, is kind of blocking the way. And they need to look through people and say, okay, this person may not be a prospect. I totally get it. They're just a photographer, and I'm a florist. But this photographer probably knows wedding planners or people who have wedding venues. And through this photographer, I can meet the planners and I can meet the venues who are dealing with the people who are getting married who need the florists. So that's the third pitfall I see. Getting caught up in not seeing the bigger picture with respect to referrals. The fourth pitfall I see is that at times people forget that the people in their network don't live in their business worlds, and they don't speak the industry terminology, yet the people who are seeking referrals, I don't want to say insist upon, but they forget that they continue to talk their industry terminology, and people might not understand. And people are nice. People are very nice. Certainly Midwesterners are very nice. And they're not going to ask, I don't know what you mean. They're just going to shake their head and say yes. And so I see people running into this pitfall all the time where they'll talk terminology, they'll talk a language, and I was guilty of it as an attorney. I would talk a language that most people wouldn't understand. I didn't mean to do that. It's just I just assumed everybody knew when I was talking about this or that they understood, and the reality is they don't. And I see someone in almost every industry running afoul of this. Realtors, they go back to the office, they talk realtor speak. It's English, but it's realtor speak. And then they get out and they're dealing with clients, and they're dealing with centers of influence, and they're dealing with people that they're hopeful will refer them clients, and they use this realtor speak. Financial advisors do it. Certainly, I've admitted, attorneys do it. Insurance people, and the list goes on and on and on of people who use a different terminology, and they lose opportunity because people don't understand what they're looking for. And what happens a lot of times is the people seeking referrals will get really frustrated. I keep telling them that, this situation, if somebody's looking for a 203K loan, that would be a good referral for me. I keep telling them, and the reality is they don't understand what you're saying. So if you're out there and you're looking for referrals, write out what you ask for. Write it out and really be critical of what you're saying. Does the average person understand this? Don't ask the person in the cubicle next to you, because they'll get it. Ask the person who has no idea about what your industry does. Ask them if they understand it. And if they say no, then you need to kind of reword it and put it in simplified terms to try and help them. Because in the end, if you help them, they're going to be better able to help you. And that's what it's all about. That's what you're trying to do as you're networking and trying to find referrals. The final pitfall I see is that from time to time, individuals neglect to promote or ask for opportunities that are going to brand awareness or going to kind of establish them in their communities, both generally and as an expert. And so they forget to ask those sorts of things. Networking is about helping one another be successful, and certainly asking for referrals is a part of that. But again, it almost gets back to the first pitfall. Just asking for the end business is really kind of short-sighted. What you need to try to be doing is asking for all the things or different things that can help you become more successful. And part of that is just helping you develop brand awareness to establish you as an expert. The story I like to tell from time to time is when I was practicing law, ultimately I got a referral. I didn't think it was great at the time, but ultimately it turned into a great referral, and it was opportunity to speak to an organization, which led into lots and lots of business, countless other connections. And it was just something where it allowed me to stand up before a group and build awareness about myself, to establish my brand as being credible as an attorney. And everybody can kind of do this to a certain extent. Give a program, create awareness for who you are. It might be asking for opportunities to exhibit at small trade shows or community events, neighborhood functions, those sorts of things. Those are the things that kind of don't lead to immediate business, but can lead to lots of business down the line. And so from time to time, I will see members who don't touch on those things at all, but knowing those are a huge component of trying to build their business. So as you're working with people, let them know if you're ready, willing, and able to write articles, give speeches, be on podcasts. Let them know that, because that is time very well spent if you stop and think about it. It's very well spent. Maybe not immediately, but think about podcasts. You record a podcast, you're on somebody's podcast, that is released, and then you can re-release that. You can get a copy of it. Most people will give you a copy of it, give you a copy of that podcast, and you can take bits and pieces of it, and you can get a lot of mileage out of that can help you get additional business. So again, 5 pitfalls that you need to try and avoid. 1, just don't look for the end business. 2, don't be afraid of the small potatoes. Don't be afraid to ask for the small potatoes, because they lead to bigger things. They generally do. The 3rd thing, remember that the path to opportunity is seldom direct. You're going to have to go from person to person to person to get there. 4th thing, don't talk jargon. Get away from the jargon. Don't talk the office speak. I know you're really smart. I know you know what you're talking about. But when you talk jargon, you lose people. And then the final thing is, look for opportunities to build your brand. Look for your network to give you opportunities to build your brand, to establish you in the community as just generally whatever you do, and also as an expert. Focus on each of these, and in time you will end up with more, and not just more, but more and better referrals.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today, and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.